Hello and welcome to the Zotero Webinar Series through the Graduate Writing Center at Teachers College, Columbia University. My name is Catherine Cheng-Stahl and I'm one of the consultants at the Graduate Writing Center. I'm really excited to be sharing with you this particular webinar, which contains a bunch of miscellaneous features of Zotero that I wasn't able to share in some of the previous webinars. So you might be here interested in some of the additional tools that you haven't discovered. Perhaps you're here because you're curious about what else you haven't discovered on your own that you feel like you want to add to your growing repertoire of features for Zotero. Perhaps you are a total fan of Zotero like I am, and you just don't want to miss out on anything. So whatever the case, I'm really glad that you've chosen to participate in this webinar. So this particular list is not exhaustive at all. I'm sure there are features that I haven't discovered. Again, if you joined me in one of the earlier webinars, you know that I've been using Zotero for over 3 years now. I attended some beginner workshops through Columbia's library at some point early on in my journey, but for the rest of it, I pretty much just explored Zotero on my own, and through trial and error was able to find and figure out how to make Zotero work for me. So what I'm sharing with you through this particular webinar are a series of features that I find to be really cool that don't get enough attention. And so I'm eager to share these with you, hoping that they will help you along your writing journey. So in no particular order, these are the features that we will talk about. First, I'll begin with sharing how to manage duplicate files or duplicate references within your library. So especially if you're someone with multiple libraries, it can be helpful to check for duplicates every now and then just to streamline your library and minimize any redundancy so that you don't have too much file storage as part of Zotero. Another feature I'll go into is just describing the difference between removing items from a collection versus moving to trash. Those are two options that you will often see, and while they sound the same, they are not the same. Then there's also a feature within Zotero called unfiled items. So I'll go into that just to share you what that does. If you have been curious about the tags function, I'll go into that a little bit more as well in this webinar. Tags are particularly useful for different projects that you have, as well as to make the most out of your searches. Then there's a funky function called timeline, which if you haven't discovered yet, it might be worth playing with. I find that timelines can be really useful for literature reviews. There's also a fun feature called Find Available PDF. Interestingly, this feature doesn't show up on all the references, but occasionally it does. So this might be useful for you in some cases where there might be a publicly available PDF version of a file that you didn't know about. And the last thing I'll go over are the advanced search functions that are also built into Zotero. I will follow that up with how do you use these searches for particular purposes. If that sounds good to you, then let's continue. So as with my previous webinars, I'm going to go through kind of the overview, and then I will take you into my actual Zotero program and just walk through and demonstrate live for you some of the features that I explain kind of theoretically. So when it comes to managing duplicates, you will see this, this line within the left-hand side of the navigation bar called duplicate items. It's usually found at the bottom of your library, right above unfiled items. So if you click on that, and again, I think it's good to get into the habit of clicking this maybe like once a month, just to have a sense of whether you have downloaded the same thing multiple times. I'm definitely guilty of this. I sometimes don't realize I have something already, and so you will get something like this. So what I love about this particular feature is that you will see laid out within Zotero the particular references that you have duplicates of. So you can see here that I have 2 of this file right here. I have 2 of this pink article. I have 3 copies of this Powell article and 2 copies of the Vasudevan article, right? Sometimes Zotero will make a mistake with duplicates. It might see something as a duplicate when in fact, perhaps the same text shows up in 2 different book chapters, right? So it's helpful to check the creator as well as the year to make sure these are true duplicates. All right, once you've confirmed that you in fact do have duplicates, then what you might consider doing is merging the duplicates so that you don't have duplicates, right? So let's say I'm working with this particular source at the bottom. You'll notice that I have a version from 2020 as well as a version from 2021. And depending on which one you highlight, it will show you the citation information that you have. So right now I'm just highlighting the 2020 version, which I'm interested in using as the master item. And then what you will see in the subsequent area here are different versions of particular fields. So for example, there's this little icon that looks like this next to the title, which means that I have 2 versions of the title. One is in sentence case, which is the bottom one, and the other one appears to be in, I apologize, the bottom one is title case, whereas the top one is sentence case. And since I know my APA 7th edition rules, I know that what I want is actually the sentence case, not the title case. So I would then go ahead and just highlight that top one to show that that's the version I would like to keep in my merged version. You'll notice that in the abstract, there's also that same icon. So if I were to click on that, I can choose the version of the abstract that I would like to keep. All right, so once I've chosen and just kind of looked over everything, then I would hit this button called Merge 2 Items, and that would take care of everything. All right, so at this point, if you feel comfortable with this, then let's go into my actual Zotero library to take a look. If you're not ready for this, or you'd rather play around with it on your own, then you can feel free to pause this webinar and join when you're ready. So here is my personal library. At the bottom, I see duplicate items. You'll notice here that this is a case of what Zotero believes are duplicates when in fact these are not duplicates. So I'm not going to do anything about that. But let me take a look at one of my group libraries. Duplicate items. Aha. Okay, so these are the ones that I was working with. So let's actually go through the Vasudevan one. So I'm going to keep the 2020 version as my master item. Let me just select the sentence case version. And then in terms of the abstract, they honestly look the same to me. So that looks good. I'm going to click on Merge 2 Items. And as soon as I merge it, you'll notice that it disappears from this particular page. So now if I go back into my main library and I search for that article, I believe it was this one here. So you'll notice that here again, I only have one version of it. It is the sentence case version, and the file that was attached to it still exists, right? So if you have multiple files for the same reference, then what Zotero will do is it will keep all of the files. It won't merge the PDFs. You would have to go in and manually change that. All right, let's just do one more for kicks. So I've got 2 copies of this book right here. Here they look exactly the same. So I don't even have the option to select the version I want to keep. So all I'm going to do is hit Merge 2 Items, and that disappears. And now I am all set. Okay, so that was painless and hopefully enjoyable as well. All right, so let's talk about the next feature. So removing items. There are 2 ways that you can remove items. One way is to remove it from a particular collection. So let's say that I am working within this sub-collection called Pop Culture Notebook, And in it, I have a book called Ugly Feelings. And if I click on that item, I have the option right underneath duplicate item to remove item from collection. If I hit that, all that does is remove this particular reference entry from this collection. It doesn't remove it from the larger collection, which is this CT51991. It also does not remove it from my library. So this is, for example, if you change your mind and you're like, okay, I'm going through my sub collections and I want to make sure that everything in there actually pertains to the topic. So if you remove from the collection, it's not the same thing as removing it from your library. Then there's the permanent way of removing items, which is moving it to the trash. So again, that same item right underneath remove item from collection is the option to remove item to trash. So if you were to hit that, it will remove the item not only from your sub collection and your collection, it will remove it from the entire library, in addition to any files that were attached to it. Fortunately, if you accidentally delete something and you move it to the trash, you are able to recover it. There is actually a trash icon within Zotero, and every now and then that trash gets emptied. But if you recognize early on that you made a mistake, you can go ahead and recover that item from the trash. So I'm going to now go into Zotero once again to demo this. If you are interested in playing around with this on your own, again, you can feel free to pause for a moment. So here is a group library. If I hit the trash button, you'll notice that these are things that I recently deleted. I could always recover these, but right now I'm not interested. So let's say I go to my main library. I have a sample collection just to demo a few things. Within the sample collection, I have a sample sub-collection. So let's say that I go into my library and I am interested in putting this book into my sample sub-collection. So I just drag and drop it in there. Let me put this one in my sample sub-collection as well. Let's say that this one I also want in my sample sub-collection. And then let's say this one I'm going to put in my sample collection, not the sub-collection, and just one more. All right, let's put this one in sample sub-collection. All right, so now if I click on my sample sub-collection, I see 3 items. In my sample collection, I see all 3 in addition to another one that was just there. So let's say that I made a mistake and I actually don't want this one there. So I can say remove item from collection, right? So it disappears. But if I click on, I go back to my main library and I type in Brian, right? So that was the article. It's still within my library. So all it did was remove it from that collection, okay? If I go back to my sample sub-collection and now let's actually delete it. If I click on move item to trash, it asks you, are you sure? You would click OK. And what that would do is delete it from your library, move it to the trash. I'm just going to cancel out because I actually don't want to do that. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to you. Okay, so that was the second feature I wanted to share. Let's move on to the feature that is found right underneath of duplicate items. This is the unfiled items, which you can also take a look at. What unfiled items does is simply show you any reference entry that you have that isn't part of a collection. So basically, it's just part of your library, but it doesn't belong to any of the folders. And there's nothing wrong with that, except just to see that you have things that haven't been organized or sorted. And so every now and then, if you like, you can click on the unfiled items icon, take a look at whether you want to put something in a separate folder so that it belongs in a separate home. So let's take a look at this together. I'm back in my Zotero. So I go to my main library and I take a look at unfiled items. I indeed have 2. So let's say that this one here, I remember using it for a literature review. So what I'm going to do is go to unfiled items. Oh, unfiled items there. And click on it. And I'm just going to drag into the folder where I want it to go. So if I put it there, you'll notice that now if I go back to unfiled items, that disappears because it now has been filed into one of my collections. Okay, so there's nothing more to it beyond that. All right, so moving on to the next feature. So adding tags. This one is really interesting. So I'm gonna spend a little bit more time on this one. So if you take a look at the left-hand side here, you'll notice that there's this menu right here, which is generally found on the right side of Zotero if you're using the default settings. And you're probably familiar with the info tab at this point and the notes tab. There's also the tags tab. If you click on this, sometimes you'll find that your references already have these pre-populated tags that are in orange. The way that Zotero detects these tags is often within the metadata of the article, there will be keywords already built in. So Zotero will just automatically pull those and save them as tags. Now, you can go through this list and decide that this is not helpful for you, that this indexing isn't beneficial to you. You can go ahead and delete by clicking on the minus sign. You can also go in and manually add things. So if you click on the add button, it will pull up a menu that looks like this. And what you'll notice is that the tags that you manually add have a different color associated with them. So they are blue, right? So you can see that this one is a tab that I added on my own. And then once this is activated, I can go ahead and type in a keyword, a label, anything to just identify my reference entry so that it's easier to categorize later on. Okay. So once you create your tags, then you can go ahead and search for tags, which I find to be really useful. There are 2 places to search for them. One is in the top right corner. There's the search bar called all fields and tags. You can simply just type in a couple keywords and search for them. At the bottom left corner, there's another search function. So similarly, you can search for tags here. And right above, you'll actually find the existing tags within your library. So at this point, I'm gonna, again, go back into Zotero and just walk through some of these ideas once again. So within my library, let's say I'll just share one of the existing tags that I have is, I'm going to use the bottom feature down here, IJOC. IJOC stands for the International Journal of Communications, and it was just a tag that I used just to very easily pick up the articles from a particular journal. So if I click on that, you'll notice that there are 3 journal articles within my library, my personal library, that has this tag. So if I click on this one, and I go to tags, you can see it in blue. This is one that I manually added myself. This one here only has a single tag. This one has that blue tag, which is from me, right? So I can search for it there. I can also search for it there. Something else that I've been doing for research purposes is, let's say that I am working on or finding literature relating to my pilot study. So I'll just give a quick example here. So actually, let me just deselect here. I know that I was reading the works from Dana Boyd. In particular, this one here was important for me. So let's say that this one here, I just want to make a note that it's part of my pilot study. I can go into tags, click add, and just say, I actually will use my IRB identification for the pilot study. Hit enter, and there you go, it adds it. Let's say that I also worked with the piece from John Margo, and this is also pertinent to my pilot study. I hit add, 2291, done. Let's say that There's an article from Joanna Litera and A.L. Liu that I'm also interested in. I can hit add 2291. Okay, so what that does is now I've added basically a filter in some ways. So if I'm interested in now, I can go in here, type 2291, hit enter, and you'll notice that these are the ones that have that particular tag, right? Similarly, I can do the same thing in the bottom here, 2291, right there, click on it, and there you go. All right, so I think this is personally very useful because if you just make a mental note of the literature that you might want to use for a particular project, for a particular manuscript, for a particular chapter in your proposal, for something in your master's IP, then I think adding these tags helps you organize and find things more easily within Zotero. All right, let's go back. Let's talk about the timeline feature. All right, so the timeline feature is exactly what it sounds like. It provides a timeline of the literature that's found within your library. So you can select to create a timeline for your entire library, which would probably be massive. You can also create a timeline for a collection or a sub-collection. And it's just a way for you to visualize, have a sense of, do you have a lot of literature from a particular decade, from a particular year? Are you missing literature that are more contemporary, right? So it gives you a sense of where your literature is coming from in terms of chronology. So the way to access the timeline is to click on the tools bar right there and then timeline. So it's very straightforward. And that will pull up a window that looks like this right here. You'll notice that here you can sort of see the decade across the bottom. You can see the specific year right above that, and then the month, even if there's that information built into your citational information. Okay, so let's take a look. So let's say that at one point in class, I've created a lit review and I'm interested in looking at the timeline. So if I go to tools, I can hit create timeline and this window pops up right here. So for this particular collection, you'll notice that if I keep scrolling, I have a couple of entries from 2018. I have one from April 2019. If I keep scrolling, got something from August of 2017, a couple more from 2017, 2016, 2015. There's a period around here without articles. Right, so again, this is a timeline. You can keep scrolling. And so what you'll notice is just a way to visualize where most of your sources are coming from in terms of the year. So if I keep scrolling from below 2000s, you'll notice that I really don't have a lot. And so I feel like that alone can tell you quite a bit in terms of, do you have more contemporary sources in your collection? Do you have some more classic sources from a while back? So you'll notice a couple of things here, right? So at the bottom, again, is the decade. Then I have the year, then I have the month, but you can change all of that. So the settings are under here. So first band, second band, third band. You can change the first band to be in millennia or centuries instead of I have it at decade, or sorry, a month, right? So you can just order things in whatever way makes sense to you. If I'm interested in just one particular year, let's say I type in 2018, then it's going to give me kind of the snapshot from 2018 right there. Okay. So just for kicks, I'm going to repeat this now for maybe my entire library. So again, I go to tools, create timeline. All right, so this one here, you'll notice is a lot more crowded, right? So you can see sort of the preview at the bottom, and then you can see the close-up at the top, right? So the preview is actually quite nice, and you'll notice that I have a whole lot. at this period of time from 2020. Right, and so I keep scrolling. I don't have a whole lot in this period here. So between 2013 and 2014, it's a little lighter. So I can keep scrolling. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with this information just yet, but I think it's just another powerful visualization tool for you to get to know what you have in your collection just a little bit more. So if you find a cool use for the timeline, do let us know. I'd be very curious personally, but I hope that this is a feature that you can play around with just a little bit more. All right, so I'm just going to close out of this. This one here, I'm not really going to demonstrate because it's just super straightforward, but there is the function for you to search for PDFs. The way to just do so is if you go into your library, anytime you don't have that little triangle arrow, it indicates that you don't have a file attached to it. Another way to figure this out is to look for the little blue circle. The blue circle indicates that you have a PDF that's associated with a reference. So if I'm interested in seeing whether there is an available PDF, I can just click on anything that doesn't have a blue circle, right? So if I were to click on this one or even this one, there should be an option to find available PDF. If you click on that, then a window will pop up and Zotero will attempt to search for any publicly available file to pull and store within Zotero itself. So I haven't had a whole lot of luck just because I generally have files for most of my references. But if you're someone who's been using Zotero just to store references and not file, but you would like to see what's available, you could try out this function. All right, so we are at the final feature. So if you made it so far, thank you for bearing with me. I wanted to save one of my favorite fun features for last. So this is called the advanced search function, and you can access it at the very top menu by looking for that little search icon right there. It's found right next to the plus sign, the magic wand, which again is a personal favorite as well. But if you go all the way to the right, you'll see this advanced search function. If you click on that, a window pops up that looks like this on the left. And there are a couple of things you can do. You can indicate the library to search within. So the default is generally your personal library, but if you also have group libraries, then you can select for the group library as well. Unfortunately, there is not a way to search across all libraries, and I'm hoping that this will be a new feature that Zotero will consider adding. Then you can indicate the match, whether you want to match all of the following or any of the following. You can choose title, and there are all these kind of modifiers, which I will demonstrate live in just a moment. So just for kicks, I typed in ethnography. I was interested in any entries that had ethnography within the title. I hit search, and then within my library, these are the ones that come up as having the word ethnography found within the title. So at this point, if I'm interested in saving the search, then all I would do is hit save search. All right, so let me go ahead and demonstrate this live. All right, so let's say I'm searching within my library. Here is that search function. Let me click on that. And in this case, again, let me just say ethnography is what I'm interested in. You can also search for the word ethnography within the child note, within collection titles, within the notes that you type up, within the attachment file itself. So you've got lots of options here. For now, I'll just select title. I wanted to contain ethnography, but you can also do the opposite of anything but that word, right? So let me hit search, and these are the items that pop up. So I'm gonna hit save search here, and I will give it the name of ethnography search. Okay, I typed that wrong, but that's okay. So what you'll notice here is that that search, that saved search shows up at the bottom of my library information right there. If I click on it, I can edit the saved search. I can actually go into this menu again and revise. Other options include deleting it. You can also duplicate it. So there are a couple of things that you can do. So let me just do one more. So let's say that this time I'm going to search within notes and I don't know, youth maybe. All right, so see how now it's pulling up things from my notes document. So these little yellow icons indicate that I have something for notes. So let me just click on save search and I'll call this one as youth notes. Okay. And you'll notice that right there, it shows up right underneath this one, right? Okay, so what do I do with this, right? What I love about these saved searches is that one of my favorite things that you can do then is you can go ahead and create a bibliography. So if I were to hit on that, you will see this menu, which you've seen at this point if you watch some of the other webinars. I'm interested in creating a reference list with APA 7th edition, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard so I can just paste that list, let's say, into a Google Doc, into an email, into something else, right? Maybe I can follow up on it for a project. So I'm going to say copy to clipboard, okay. And you know what, just for fun, since I'm already within Zotero, I'm just going to create a new standalone note. Oh, I'm not sure where that went. So actually, let me just go into the search and sure, I'll just add a child note within there since I'm just demoing this, and I hit paste. So you can see how all the references from that ethnography search are now here, but I could really paste it anywhere I'd like. Okay, I'm actually just gonna go ahead and move this to trash because I don't need that. Right. So I can do the same thing for this. So you can have as many searches as you like. So it's just another way of fine tuning what you're looking for within your library. And you can create those personalized reference lists with the click of a button, which I think is really, really cool. Okay. Well, that is all that I have for you in this miscellaneous webinar. I hope this has been interesting. I hope that you have now added a couple more tools to your Zotero toolbox. If there are additional things that you're interested in learning about with Zotero, I encourage you to go to the Zotero forum, which has lots of information. But if you would like more personalized help, you can feel free to make an appointment with one of the consultants who are using Zotero. So at this point, you have reached the end of the webinar series. Of course, there is no one way of accessing these webinars. Perhaps this is the first one you watch, but in any case, thank you for your time, and I hope that this has been helpful.